12 cold, hungry truckers stepped out of their rigs and into a freezing night, their boots crunching over thick snow. They had been rerouted by a blizzard, stranded far from home. Their fuel was low, stomachs empty, and hope fading. Then, through the whiteout, they saw a faint neon glow. Olivia's diner. It looked closed, forgotten. But when they opened the door, what they found inside was not just warmth. It was a woman's quiet act of kindness that would change their lives forever. The blizzard had swallowed the roadways. Olivia stood alone in her silent diner, staring out the frosted window. Snowflakes blew sideways like ghosts across the highway. Her small town business had suffered for months. The storm made things worse. She had already decided to close early. No customers had come all day. Her pantry was almost bare. But just as she reached to turn off the lights, the sound of diesel engines cut through the quiet. Headlights appeared through the snow. One truck, then another, then 10 more. She stepped back, confused, watching 12 large trucks park outside. The doors opened slowly. Men stepped out, faces red with cold, jackets stiff from ice. They looked exhausted, lost, and starving. The first man opened the diner door. "Are you still open, ma'am?" Olivia stood motionless behind the counter. Her voice trembled. I, I have very little food left, just some eggs, a few cans, not much." He looked back at the others, then turned to her. "Anything would help. We are just trying to get through the night." Her eyes softened. These men were strangers, but their desperation reminded her of something she had once lived through. She nodded gently. "Come in, please. Sit wherever you like." She walked to the kitchen, heart racing. The shelves were almost empty. 7 eggs, 1 loaf of bread, 2 cans of beans. Not enough for 12 men. She looked at what little she had, then made a silent decision. Even if it meant going hungry herself, she would feed them, every last one. Inside the diner, the silence felt heavy but comforting. The storm screamed outside, but within those walls, a fragile warmth began to grow. Olivia worked quickly in the tiny kitchen, her hands shaking not from fear but urgency. She poured what little coffee she had into mismatched mugs. 6 cups total. She placed them on a tray, steadying it with both hands. As she pushed through the swinging door, 12 tired truckers looked up, their eyes filled with quiet hope. She set the tray down and offered the mugs to the nearest men. She whispered, "I will bring more soon." Then she disappeared again into the kitchen. Every step she took mattered. Every decision counted. The supplies were dangerously low. 7 eggs, 1 loaf of bread, 2 cans of beans, no butter, no meat, nothing fresh. Still, she had made a promise to feed them all. Back in the kitchen, she cracked each egg with care. She sliced the bread thinner than she ever had before. She stirred the beans with a touch of salt, stretching the flavor. She lit the old stove burner, her breath fogging slightly in the cold. There was no time for fear, only focus. She had served thousands of customers in this diner over the years, but none like these men, strangers with weary faces, grateful for shelter and food. In the dining room, the truckers sat quietly. The first few sipped the hot coffee slowly, as if it was sacred. Their eyes wandered to the photographs on the walls: Olivia's father in a cook's apron, a ribbon cutting from years ago, old newspaper clippings. The diner had history. It had heart. The oldest driver, Hank, finally spoke. "This place feels like it remembers people." A younger man nodded. "Feels like it forgives them too." Moments later, Olivia returned carrying the first 2 plates: eggs, beans, and toasted bread. Humble, but made with care. The men looked down, then back up at her, unsure of what to say. She smiled gently. "Eat before it gets cold." One man tried to offer payment. Olivia raised her hand. You are not customers tonight, you are guests. That is what matters. The men grew quiet again, but this time it was a silence filled with emotion. No one had expected kindness in the middle of nowhere. No one had expected to feel seen. Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside, something rare was taking place. A woman giving all she had, and 12 strangers starting to feel like they belonged. The storm battered the windows, but the diner stood strong. Inside, the tired truckers sat wrapped in quiet gratitude. Olivia moved with purpose, though her limbs ached from hours on her feet. She brought each plate with care, pausing to offer a kind glance or soft word. The food had run thin, yet somehow she made it stretch. Each man received a warm meal, and with it, something far greater dignity. Marcus, one of the younger drivers, looked at his plate as if it held more than eggs and toast. No one has done something like this for me in years, he said quietly. Hank leaned forward, his voice low. That woman is made of something this world forgot. That is real strength. In the kitchen, Olivia faced an empty pantry. Not a single can remained. No more bread, no more eggs. She leaned against the counter, breathing in the scent of the last cooked meal. Her body was drained, but her heart felt full. She had done what she came here to do, offer warmth when no one else would. She returned to the dining room with the final plate. As she set it down before the last man, he looked up slowly. His eyes glistened. Thank you, Mom. This means more than I can ever explain. Olivia smiled gently. You are welcome. Please, rest while you can. The men ate in silence, but it was not the silence of strangers anymore. It was the silence of respect. The clatter of forks, the occasional sigh, and the crackle of the wind outside were the only sounds. After the meal, something shifted. Dave, the youngest driver, stood and cleared his throat. He looked around the room at the other men. We cannot leave in the morning without doing something. She gave us everything she had. We need to give something back. The room stilled. Eyes met across the tables. No one argued. One by one, heads nodded. These were men who had driven through every kind of storm, but none had ever been fed by someone so selfless, expecting nothing in return. Hank placed his weathered hand on the counter. Tomorrow, before we leave, we fix this place. We fill her pantry. We make sure this diner never runs empty again. Outside, the wind began to calm. The worst of the blizzard had passed. But something far more powerful had taken place inside Olivia's diner. 12 broken spirits beginning to heal through the kindness of one woman. Morning broke slowly, with pale sunlight pushing through the grey clouds. The storm had passed, leaving behind a blanket of snow so thick and silent it seemed to hush the world. But inside Olivia's diner, the air buzzed with quiet energy. The truckers were already up, whispering plans and moving carefully so they would not wake Olivia, who had finally fallen asleep in a booth, her apron still tied, her hands folded like a child's. Hank walked outside first. The snow reached halfway up his knees, but he did not flinch. He turned back toward the others and gave a firm nod. Let us get to work. Two men cleared the parking lot. Another checked the trucks. Dave and Marcus walked to town, their boots crunching through the snow. They knocked on doors and told shopkeepers about the woman in the diner who had fed 12 strangers with everything she had. People listened. Some followed. Others brought food, eggs, bread, fruit, and meat, bags of groceries stacked high. They carried it all back like a quiet parade of gratitude. By the time Olivia stirred awake, the smell of coffee filled the room again, but it was not hers. She sat up slowly and looked around in confusion. The pantry door was open, overflowing with supplies. Her cracked freezer hummed again. Someone had fixed the wiring. A fresh coat of paint covered the front counter, and 12 truckers stood there, smiling like schoolboys, their jackets covered in snow. What? What is this? Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Hank stepped forward, his voice strong and warm. It is your diner. You kept it alive for us. Now we are helping keep it alive for everyone. Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. She covered her mouth with both hands, speechless. She had spent years holding everything together by herself. In one night, that loneliness had been shattered. A few hours later, someone shared the story online. Photos of the diner, a video of Olivia serving food, a picture of the truckers repairing the roof. Within hours, the post went viral. People across the country shared it, wrote messages, and offered donations. News vans pulled into the lot. Reporters called her a hero, but Olivia never saw herself that way. When asked why she did what she did, she simply said, "They were cold. They were hungry. I had a stove and a heart. That was enough." The world agreed. Letters poured in. Travelers came just to eat a slice of toast and say thank you. A local charity offered her help to renovate. The diner that once sat empty became full of life again. 12 truckers had walked in during a storm, seeking shelter. They left behind something much greater, a reminder that one act of kindness could change everything. And Olivia? She never changed. She still greeted every person with that same quiet smile, as if she had been waiting for them all along. If you enjoyed this video and it touched your heart, please consider subscribing to my channel. Your support means the world to me and helps me keep creating more stories like this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Love.